This program is made possible by American Senior Benefits Wichita is all about your peace of mind. We specialize in asset protecting, safeguarding your health, planning your estate, and preserving your freedom of choice. We're here to work through all of this with you. American Senior Benefits Wichita proudly supports PBS Kansas. The Candle Club, a place where friends, food, and music come together. Currently, we offer live entertainment every night except Sundays. Enjoy our delicious specialty appetizers and the Candle Club Signature Prime Rib. More about upcoming events at candleclubwichita.com. Home Health and Hospice of Kansas is a locally owned and community-based provider. We offer quality health care to our patients and families, complete with love, warmth, and compassion. We'll take care of all of the details for you. More information at kansashomehealth.com. Welcome to Cedric Plaza Retirement Community. Our living options are designed to suit your specific needs and activities that you're sure to love. We believe you'll be able to see yourself here, enjoying time with friends and family. For more information, cedricplaza.org.
Welcome to another episode of Empowering Seniors. I'm your host, Katherine Ambrose, and today we're going to talk about financial gerontology. I'm joined by Dr. John Migliaccio. And Doctor, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
We are so honored to have you on the show today, and just by luck, we have this opportunity because the Wichita State Planning Council is bringing you in to speak.
Yep.
So we're very excited. I had not heard the term financial gerontology before. Tell us what that means.
It's a focus on academic study for part of it and practical application for another part of it, of the convergence of financial issues and the aging population, which is a term, gerontology is the study of aging. So colleagues, most notably Dr. Neil Cutler, back in 1988, put together a framework for looking at financial gerontology and began research and publishing and teaching and instruction on financial gerontology, and that's continued through today and hopefully will continue in the future.
Going back to the 1980s, you've had an interest in this field. So share with me what prompted you to start doing this research.
Actually, it was related to my father's retirement. He was relatively young, and he worked for the federal government for his entire career after World War II. So because he had enlisted when he was a teenager, he was an airplane engine mechanic, they counted his military service along with all his service with the federal government for the Defense Department in his career. So, and he enlisted when he was 16. So by the time he was 55, he had put in about 38 years. He was about at the end. He says, I can work for the rest of my life. I'm not going to get a dime more out of my pension, so I'm thinking of retiring. On top of that, because his birth records were off, they had him as a year older than he actually was. So he was actually 54 years old and was ready to retire and follow the sun, according to him. My father had never been past some New Jersey beach resorts in his entire life. Maybe he'd go out to Pennsylvania once in a while to visit some relatives. So when he came to me and said, I'm going to travel the world and follow the sun, I'm going like, nah, that doesn't sound right. I had a master's in counseling psychology, and I'm going like, well, I need to work with him a little bit on this. And then I said, well, what else are you going to do? He says, I'm going to play golf. It was February in New Jersey. I'm going, February in New Jersey, the snow is you're not going to see the ball when you hit it in the snow. So I decided I needed to get more informed. So I took some courses on retirement counseling, but the real magnet was one day in the New York City Public Library going through some census tracts. And it was like one of those things where, you got the sign from the Lord that this was something important, because the thing that it explained to me most was why there were so many kids in my grammar school classes, and why all my friends in the public high schools had to go, and they had to go to a classroom in the parking lot because there wasn't enough room for everybody. And I was born in 1949. I was in like the leading edge baby boomer, and so there we were. And that kind of touched off an interest in what's the dynamic of this is going to be, because it's going to be going on for a long time.
Even though our country and really the world knew all these children had been born,
Oh, yeah.
they were completely unprepared when it was time for kindergarten and first grade,
Right,
and they had
yeah.
to scramble.
Yeah.
So we've talked about that on the show before, that we haven't been prepared for boomers all the way through.
Yeah.
And so right now we're working with boomer parents and boomers that are starting to deal with housing issues and innumerable aging issues. And that's the purpose of the show, is to equip, educate, and empower seniors on the overwhelming issues that they face and that the adult kids face.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about being the adult kid, dealing with your dad's retirement and some of the things that came later.
Well, it was interesting, but I gave him all this great advice after, doing about a year or two of studying about all this stuff. He had retired. The thing that got me was my mother called me up one day in a panic. And she goes, "John, you need to come out here." "Why?" "Your father." "What?" "He's going to kill me." "What do you mean he's going to kill you?" "He's painting again." "What do you mean he's painting again?" He's painting the kitchen again." "Okay, so?" "Oh, well, he just painted it like a month ago." He had nothing to do. So he was painting, and the paint, she said, "The fumes are going to kill me." So I went out and said, all right, I need to do an intervention here. That was the first, and this was a year or so into his retirement. So if my father, and he had a good pension, he had dabbled in the stock market for decades, he had good income from that. My mother had worked and had been a business owner herself. She decided when my father retired, she had to go back to work to get away from him painting the house. And we had to find something for Dad to do. So he finally decided, he had a friend of his who did tax preparation work, so he went to work for a tax preparation company and then started his own tax prep business, which kept him going for another 30 years. Never followed the sun, never did any of the things that he said he was going to do, played golf occasionally. But his retirement was very different than the picture he had painted to me, my mother, and for himself. So it really indicated that folks need to take a look at what the reality is of what their retirement's going to be. And a lot of people, there are periods in retirement. You have the decision to do it. You have a honeymoon period, where you do all those things that you said you were going to do, and then you kind of get tired of fishing every day or traveling or do whatever, and then you settle back in. You've got family issues, kids, adult children, grandchildren, older siblings, older parents yourself at some time. So this whole arena of financial gerontology, and there's money issues in there, obviously. What this whole arena does is it says you need to collect all of those components, and you need to start looking at what this engine that you need to build for your retirement is going to be, that's going to work out for everybody. So that's what got me going, is it almost all of the things that I've learned, the best experiences and best learnings that I've had have been from having to deal with my own family.
We had a moment to talk before we started the show, and you mentioned that financial issues are family issues. So tell us why that is. Why are financial issues, why do they become family issues?
I mean, they are to begin with, because people talk. There was at least at one point some talk about greedy geezers. The old people who are going to suck up all the resources in the United States, et cetera, et cetera. But what they neglected was that people interact with their families. I mean, that's the dynamic. Is what are they doing at the scale of their children, their grandchildren, themselves, extended family, et cetera, et cetera. So if you look at what's happening, the baby boomers are in line to inherit the largest intergenerational transfer of money in history. Back in about 5 or 6 years ago, it was about $11.2 trillion. That's about like the second largest economy, GDP, in the world.
Wow.
So part of it is, and it's not obviously everybody's getting everything. If you've got more money, kids are going to get more money, and downstream, other generations, your legacy. If you have less money, you're still going to get something. On average, if you split it up, everything is going to be about $100,000 a person.
Okay.
So even with that, a lot of people are not prepared with what you're going to be able to do with an additional $100,000, or $1.5 million, or $2 million, or even $28,000. So you need to have a conversation on that alone is enough to start a conversation. What is all this stuff worth? And what are we going to do with it? Grandparents are another support level for their children and their grandchildren. Right now, grandparents are in a pickle paying for their kids and sometimes their grandkids' college education costs. Mm-hmm. College debt is an incredible burden on families that they had not anticipated. So it's this conversation and the viewpoint and perspective that you need to be able to carry through what you're going to do to accommodate all those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because grandparents often are sometimes even raising grandchildren.
Absolutely.
Helping with dance lessons, buying a car, maybe helping with housing, the whole thing. On the flip side, we see some of the adult kids having concerns about mom and dad's financials and whether they have planned well how they're going to age in their home or make a move, and do they have the resources to do that, or is one of the adult kids or the kids all together going to help out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and usually there's some trigger event that creates this the crisis that most families have to respond to. Mm-hmm. Somebody falls and breaks a hip, somebody gets ill, someone develops Alzheimer's or other cognitive impairment. Mm-hmm. It might be one parent, might be both parents. The primary caregiver for old men in the United States is their old spouse. Mm-hmm. And then if you have that kind of a dynamic, that's when adult children need to step in. And most people, there are very few of what we call planners in families. Preemptive planners are not the majority of people out there. Most people are responders to something that's occurred.
That crisis.
Right. So, and that's typically what gets things moving in terms of having those discussions, et cetera, et cetera. But of course, it's a highly stressful period. Mm-hmm. Nobody has any information. Mm-hmm. So everybody's kind of scrambling around. So those family discussions about it become really important. So you want to have somebody who can step in and take charge. Mm-hmm. If it's not one of the parents, it can be one of the adult children.
When do you think it's appropriate to begin these conversations? It's not a one-time conversation, I take it.
No, the appropriate time is yesterday.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
on a regular basis.
Okay.
Because it's dynamic. I mean, we're looking at situations now where everything is in flux. Mm-hmm. You've got all sorts of financial dynamics going on.
And in many families, people don't talk about money. No matter how much money they have or don't have, it's just not something that people talk about. Yeah. Why is it important to maybe consider changing your mind on that?
Well, I mean, I tell people, if you had a tumor on your brain, would you do your own brain surgery? Mm-hmm. And the answer is usually no. And it's exactly the same reason why you want to have trusted professionals to work with you and to provide you with guidance about it. In fact, the less resources that there are, the more important the need is for that, mm-hmm. because the paucity of resources there account for a much larger proportion of what's there in general. So you really need to have a plan to be able to conserve that and use it in the best way possible, so that you're serving the needs of whoever needs it at most at that point. So.
Because sometimes if you wait till the urgent crisis stage, it might be too late. Money wasn't spent right.
Right, or you're walking into a market or some other kind of financial circumstance that's not as lucrative as it may have been in the past. So you need to take a look at that. So because that's I think one of the things. It's the what if scenarios. It's the what if this stops tomorrow, or what if dad falls down, or what if mom has a stroke, or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. Because those kinds of things can be really draining. Those are healthcare costs can be astronomical in comparison to what's available for people.
Mm-hmm. So when the grandparents start falling down and having a lot of issues, what kind of research and moves do you see people making? How many people would prefer to age in place versus make a move somewhere else?
The answer to that question has been consistent for about 30 years, and it's about 80% of people want to age at home, and that's contingent on a bunch of things. Is the house a good place to age, mm-hmm. or was it really built in bought to raise a bunch of children in. Older houses were not up to the specifications that you need today for accessibility or visitability by people who need a wheelchair. You can remodel. That's one of the great things about the homes that a lot of people are involved in, and there are a number of organizations that specialize in remodeling homes for aging. National Association of Home Builders has a group. They're in your local areas, maybe specializing in that as well. So you want to get everything down on one floor. You don't want to have a two-story prison instead of a two-story home. You want to have access, bathrooms, bedrooms, kitchens. If you're in a wheelchair, try sitting in a wheelchair and go operating your sink. Okay, preparing food. I mean, it's basic kinds of things like that. And the things that are around now are just, I mean, it doesn't look institutional. It looks, very stylish, but functional to be able to allow for that mobility.
Right. So people that want to age in place, it might be that home that they are in right now might not be the best place to age in place. Maybe moving to a single family home or some type of property where that would accommodate that better might be a good step.
Yeah.
And then at some point, many people do see themselves maybe moving into senior living when maybe that wasn't their intention.
Correct. Yeah.
I was just touring someone through the other day, and she said, if I knew how nice it was going to be, I would have taken better care of myself.
Right.
Because many times people have in their minds a nursing home that their grandmother was in, and they maybe are unaware of what's available.
Yeah. There's what's called a continuum of care that occurs. So it's not typical for people to suddenly not be ill and then the next day need a nursing home. It happens, but it's not typical. What typically is you go through various levels of need for assistance or accommodation for physical limitations you might have. Even things as simple as rugs in a home. Most older folks who wind up in a hospital with a hip fracture wind up because they tripped on a rug or had a bad pair of shoes or couldn't see. Those very, very basic kinds of things can make a home available and safe enough for living as someone ages without a lot of accommodation. We did some research at one point, and to kind of get a home, a typical 1950s, 1960s built home or 1970s that was built for the to have the kids in, about $10,000 will get it up to the point where it's gotten at least minimal accommodation for someone to age in place for a much longer period of time.
And that way, then, if they need care, they can have some in-home care help.
Correct.
And maybe home health coming to visit with some of the
Correct.
just medical things.
Yeah.
But at some point, there's a switch cost, and it becomes very expensive to do that.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the difference in people's portfolios. Sometimes if people are very wealthy, they can age in place. They could have 24-hour in-home care.
Correct, yeah.
And it becomes a lot more important for people that don't have as much of that money set aside to make great decisions.
Right, yes.
And pre-plan.
Yeah. So, those are, if you talk about investments, that's a good investment because what it does is it keeps the person in the place that they want to be and allows them to live there, with a reasonable lifestyle and quality of life. At some point, if someone really has medical issues, then obviously the transition to a nursing home is needed, or assisted living is another option. But you want to know what's out there. You want to start exploring what's available. How much does it cost? When I did some research on the nursing home costs and assisted living costs throughout the United States, and it's dramatic. People, for example, they have you can go to an all-inclusive assisted living, and people say, no, that's too much money. So they opt out for a la carte. And we did an analysis. It's cheaper ultimately for somebody to go in and get all the services and pay for it all in one lump rather than buy a la carte services because it adds up to more money. And it gives you some flexibility in terms of staying in a facility longer. So this is why you need to have a team of people or at least resources that you can go to. You can look it all up on the internet, but if you can make sense out of half the stuff that's there, as a professional would, good for you. But normal people, everyday folks, need somebody who can interpret what's out there for them.
So let's talk about Wichita. So you're from New York.
Yes.
And you did some research on our city. And of course, our show goes way beyond Wichita.
Yeah.
So tell us about what you see as the opportunities that Wichita, Kansas, and maybe some of the surrounding communities might have.
Yeah, I think now. So I'm coming at this. I'm looking not through a microscope, but I'm looking, with a magnifying glass, saying, "What's Wichita all about?" Fascinated by what I found. The thing that struck me most about Wichita when I started looking into it was the attitude of the folks who are talking about Wichita. Mm-hmm. It's perfect for the demographic dynamics that are going to be happening over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And that is, it's open to all ages. It's really looking at what's going on and welcoming people throughout a lifespan. So you have a lifespan, you have a wealth span, you have a health span.
Okay.
Those three things all happen all kind of together. Uh-huh. And my takeaway from what I looked at was Wichita is well placed for taking advantage of all three of those things over a long period of time. With the aging of the baby boomers, the aging of the population, the transition to the kids of the baby boomers, of which there are even more, it's even a larger generation than the baby boomers themselves. And so you've got all this stuff happening. You've got an older population, you've got your boomer population, you've got your silent generation pop, and then you've got the millennial population who are all having their kids now. So this is all going to kind of washing through in Wichita for the next few decades. And probably people don't realize how much the value is, just the monetary value, the financial value of what's going on. So I did some quick numbers and looked at the 65 plus population, which is about 13.5% of Wichita.
Okay.
Which is low, by the way.
Okay.
Where I live in New York, we're already approaching about almost 20% of people 60 and over in our population, our county population. So you've got about 13.5% in Wichita, which is relatively low. You would think of this over 65 population as, they're old, they're needy, et cetera, et cetera. Well, they put in about $1.5 billion into the city economy in purchases every year. This is just retail purchases. They've got about $3.5 billion of home value, that they're involved in. So when you start talking to people about that, they go like, whoa, everybody's expecting them to be, needy and wanting and et cetera. But you have to take a look at the other side. Is what are they contributing? Now, out of that $5 billion on an annual basis, some of that's going to be going through family issues, right? So this is where the family comes in again. What's going to happen to that $3.5 billion in home value at the point when they're not going to be living at home anymore? They're going to want to sell it. They're going to want to do something with it. They're going to want to remodel it. The other thing I found fascinating is I looked up some information. There's an old rubric in the financial services industry. Well, you need $1 million, to retire successfully. And most people, kind of laugh when you talk about that kind of stuff. But if you look at all the combined value of what they have, that is on for an entire household, an older household, even if it's half that, it's still a lot of money.
Significant.
Yeah. You would know, what's the home value like in Wichita? What are those homes worth? So there's the home equity that everybody wants to leave to their kids. By the way, the kids don't want it. It's like,
what do the kids want the parents to do with the house?
Sell it before they have to deal with it.
Okay.
And find some place that's reasonable to live. All of the really important legacy things are probably not the things the kids want. And probably the things that you thought were really valuable are really not that valuable anymore. You can dump your Wedgwood collection.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to buy it even at auction.
Everybody else is dumping it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you want to get it down to those really important things. Part of which is the money, but part of which is that sense of family that you have with it. The other, in terms of the $1 million, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, there was a recent piece of research that I saw that looked at how long will $1 million last in various cities around the country. And the low on the run was San Francisco. The $1 million is going to last you about 9.5 years.
Okay.
In Wichita, that $1 million is going to last you 29 years, 8 months, and 27 days. Mm-hmm. You can get by
Right.
on $1 million, or even a lot less than $1 million in Wichita. It's striking me as a good place to grow old on a variety of levels. Coming in as a stranger now, coming in as an outsider, first impressions. That's one of my first impressions. I think there's a real opportunity for Wichita to get involved in age-friendly and being an age-friendly community. Since you got a lot of room to grow, you only have 13.5% of your population here that's in that 65 plus. And to create a framework for being attractive for people to come to. The population growth rate in Wichita is relatively low from the last census to the 2020 census that's coming up, at least as of quick calculation of as of March of 2020, you have about 390,000 people. 10 years ago, you had about 372,000. So it was like not a lot of people. About a 1.8% growth rate.
So very low growth.
Low growth in terms of population, but very vibrant in terms of business and activity and sensibility and attitude. So I think it bodes well.
Well, this is very interesting, and I'm so glad there's someone that's devoted so many years to studying financial gerontology, and that you now are educating people in your industry and beyond, and today empowering seniors. So
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being part of our show.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in. We hope you'll tune in next time. Again, I'm Katherine Ambrose, and if you have questions about this topic or any other empowering senior topics, be sure to reach out to us at empoweringseniors@kpts.org.
This program is made possible by American Senior Benefits Wichita is all about your peace of mind. We specialize in asset protecting, safeguarding your health, planning your estate, and preserving your freedom of choice. We're here to work through all of this with you. American Senior Benefits Wichita proudly supports PBS Kansas. The Candle Club, a place where friends, food, and music come together. Currently, we offer live entertainment every night except Sundays. Enjoy our delicious specialty appetizers and the Candle Club Signature Prime Rib. More about upcoming events at candleclubwichita.com. Home Health and Hospice of Kansas is a locally owned and community-based provider. We offer quality health care to our patients and families, complete with love, warmth, and compassion. We'll take care of all of the details for you. More information at kansashomehealth.com. Welcome to Cedric Plaza Retirement Community. Our living options are designed to suit your specific needs and activities that you're sure to love. We believe you'll be able to see yourself here, enjoying time with friends and family. For more information, cedricplaza.org.